It's our second Michigan football report of the day, little PM version. So all I'm asking for is 8 minutes of your time. We put out a long video earlier today. So just give me 8 minutes of your time to talk about Michigan football, specifically JJ McCarthy. Jim Harbaugh was at his press conference on Monday, had a very heavy series of quotes on JJ McCarthy, one that struck out. And taken out of context, this could look like of all time, but I think going forward, JJ will be the quarterback that all future quarterbacks are compared to. Now, the context was comparing to other Michigan football quarterbacks. As Harbaugh says, JJ McCarthy is on pace, is kind of trending towards being the greatest Michigan football quarterback that there ever was. So Harbaugh praising McCarthy all day long in his press conference and put out a lot of really cool stats that we'll talk about here in just a moment. I've never been more confident in a Michigan football quarterback than I am currently with JJ McCarthy. I mean, just think back to even a season like 2018 or 19 with Shea Patterson, very strong quarterback. Think back to Wilton Spate in 16 and 17. Go back to John Navarre, Chad Henne. Even these road games like to Nebraska or Minnesota or a game against Purdue, you would always think, well, there's a chance Michigan could lose if they don't show up. I don't have any of those thoughts when J.J. McCarthy is the quarterback of a Michigan football team. And frankly, I never have. The only game that he let me down was really the TCU game last year where he threw those 2 pick sixes and Michigan's entire offense and coaching staff just didn't really look like they came ready to play. Defense, gave up 52 points, so we know what happened there. Let's talk more on the Harbaugh quotes. Take a look at what else he said on J.J. McCarthy. He says, I feel like I stand corrected from what I've been saying the last several months, which is I think JJ is a once-in-a-generation quarterback. JJ has shown to be on the path to be the best quarterback in Michigan history. So Harbaugh with some strong praise on JJ McCarthy, saying he's on pace to be the best quarterback in Michigan history. And if he never played another down, okay, you can't really give him the best quarterback, the GOAT of Michigan football quarterbacks yet. So I agree with Jim Harbaugh. And frankly, I said it all last week. I said, J.J. McCarthy, as long as something drastic doesn't happen, bad, he's going to be a Heisman finalist. He will be the greatest quarterback in Michigan football history as long as things continue on these next 5, 6, 7, 8 games, national title. I think what he's going for right now is the best quarterback in the history of the Big Ten. Personally, I feel that is Justin Fields as of now. J.J. McCarthy's won, 14 straight games in the Big Ten to start his career. He'll tie Fields' from what you know, Big Ten record in a couple weeks, 3 weeks against Purdue, and have a chance to break it on the road against Penn State. Harbaugh continued. He says he's had 213 drives. This is McCarthy as a quarterback at Michigan. We scored on 130 of those drives. 96 have been touchdowns. So that's a pretty good touchdown percentage. Just quick math, that's around 44% or so. 34 field goals, 61% scoring drive. It's really remarkable. There's no stat that demonstrates the quality of quarterback play more than that statistic in my mind. And Jim Harbaugh, in a lot of ways, is comparing himself to J.J. McCarthy, right? Comparing J.J. McCarthy's play to his own, right? The quarterback at Michigan prior to Harbaugh, prior to McCarthy, that might be considered the greatest of all time, could be Jim Harbaugh, right? Heisman Trophy finalist, first-round draft pick, All-American, right? Led Michigan to 2 back-to-back seasons, 85 and 86, where they finished in the top 5. McCarthy is your Big Ten Player of the Week this week. The first time he has had that honor in his 2 years as a starter at Michigan, 3 years inside the program. Now, think about that from the perspective of Heisman Trophy winner, Big Ten Player of the Year, first-round draft pick. He's got to win a lot more of those, I think, to kind of cement his status as a Heisman finalist, potential Heisman winner. Of course, greatest quarterback in Michigan and maybe even Big Ten history. He's leading a record-setting Michigan football offense. How about this stat? This is the first 10-game stretch in Michigan football program history. We're going back to the late 1800s, folks. First time that Michigan has had 10 straight games where they have scored over 30 points. How about that stat? Who's been the quarterback for all 10 of those games? None other than J.J. McCarthy. 7 games this year. Then you're going back, TCU, Purdue, Ohio State, right? I guess it was the Illinois game where Blake Corum got hurt at halftime. Michigan really struggled. Had to get a Jake Moody field goal to win it in the last 10 seconds or so. Jake Moody didn't fare too well yesterday with the 49ers under similar circumstances a little further down. So I'm going to say this on J.J. McCarthy. All right? I've been praising him for really 4 or 5 years since he was in high school when he committed to Michigan as a 5-star player. I'm saying this to Jim Harbaugh, to J.J. McCarthy, to the Michigan coaching staff, these players, Go win the Heisman. You are in absolutely the best position at this time of the year, October 16th, that a Michigan quarterback has been in the last 30 years at least. Right? Jannard Robinson had a drink of water in the Heisman conversation, but by this time, Michigan started losing games. He really never was a true factor. McCarthy is number 3 in my recent today. I put out every Monday, put out my Heisman Trophy top 10. Michael Penix Jr. from Washington got the win at Oregon, and that catapults him up there. Caleb Williams was number 1 last few weeks for me. He lost like terrible Notre Dame, which I predicted on this show on Friday. And so obviously Penix is number 1. Caleb Williams falls down to number 10. Dylan Gabriel, Oklahoma, he's got the big win over a top 5 team, Texas. So that right there is the only notch I give him above McCarthy. I thought if I put McCarthy there at number 2, people would start calling me a homer, Yoder, you're just a Michigan, blue Kool-Aid, etc., etc. So I'm going to make it McCarthy 3, but he has every opportunity this week going forward, Purdue in a couple weeks, then Penn State, to jump right up in there. 3 of his last 4 games are going to be as high profile as you can possibly get in college football. 2 minutes left in the show. Can JJ McCarthy lead Michigan national title? Yes. Yes, he can. There is no reason why he shouldn't. You saw on that list, and this is terrible to hear, and I wish him nothing but best. Quick recovery. Brock Bowers, the best player on Georgia, in my Heisman list. I don't think he'll be there after this week, of course. Reportedly done for the season, although there are conflicting reports. One says 6 weeks, one says for the season. Tough to say at this point. JJ McCarthy, I think, can lead Michigan to a national championship, and so do the odds makers, because after the Brock Bowers injury news was announced, the new title odds from all the sports books came out, and Michigan is now tied with Georgia pretty much on every sports book. The one we use at plus 270 odds. So if you put up $100 on Michigan, you win your 100 back plus $270. Big jump to number 3 at Florida State, $850. Big jump then to Ohio State, $900, $950, all the way down to some teams with 1 loss: Alabama, Texas, and Oregon, $1,700, $1,800, $3,300. With 1 minute left in the show, stick with me, folks, for 1 more minute, because Michigan's got 84 days until the national title game. 84 days till the national title game in Houston on January 8th. Stay hungry, Wolverines. Make every play, every game the biggest one of your life, because this team is so deep. The schedule's been so easy, and there's so much ahead of you. They need to stay hungry, and no, they can never be complacent. That leads to a loss at Purdue, at Penn State, Ohio State, Maryland, something like that. Take it all in, though, Michigan football fans. A season like this is so rare for any football team, for any team in any sport. I'm kind of comparing this to like the 2015-16 Golden State Warriors. Watch the games twice. Watch all the highlights 50 times. My son had me yesterday. He's like, hey, can we go back and look at highlights from the first game, second game, etc.? Watch this show every day 3 or 4 times if you have the time, because this is a season we might be talking about for generations to come. That's the Michigan Football Report in 8 minutes. See you guys on Tuesday. Go Blue.